Welcome to Torque Anatomy. Every machine has a story, and today we are breaking down a true mechanical masterpiece. Drop a like, hit subscribe, and let's get started.
Why the 1994 Toyota Supra is still worth $100,000. Why does a 30-year-old Toyota cost more than a brand new supercar? The year is 1994, and the world is about to change forever. We are looking at the absolute pinnacle of the Japanese economic bubble. Toyota had infinite money, they had absolute power, and they had one single terrifying goal: destroy the Porsche 911. This is the origin of the 1994 Toyota Supra A80. It was not just a car, it was a weapon. Back in the late 80s, Toyota was globally known for making reliable, completely boring grocery getters. But deep inside their high-security engineering headquarters, a rogue team of mad scientists was plotting a high-speed revolution. Chief engineer Isao Suzuki wanted to build a world-beating monster. He threw out the corporate rulebook. He ignored the accountants.
He demanded absolute perfection. The A80 Supra was developed with a ruthless philosophy: less weight, more grip, infinite power. The chassis development was brutal. They put the car on a sickeningly strict diet. The engineers made the hood out of lightweight aluminum.
They hollowed out the head of every single bolt. They even engineered the carpet fibers to be thinner, shaving off microscopic ounces of weight. They hollowed out the rear spoiler. They designed an incredibly complex multi-link suspension system that gripped the asphalt like a fighter jet, pulling massive G-forces. The 1994 Supra was a masterpiece of pure obsession. But the real magic, the terrifying heart of this beast, was something that would permanently alter car culture for the next 3 decades. Look under the hood. It is a mechanical masterpiece. The 2JZ GTE. 6 cylinders lined up in a perfect row, 3 liters of displacement, twin sequential turbochargers feeding massive amounts of boosted air into the combustion chambers. On paper, the Japanese spec sheet claimed it made 276 horsepower. This was because of the famous Japanese gentleman's agreement. But that number was a massive, hilarious lie. In America, it officially made 320 horsepower, but even that felt conservative. The engine block is made of pure cast iron. It is heavy. It is dense. It is indestructible. They over-engineered every single millimeter of this powerhouse. It was built to handle a nuclear blast. Most car companies build engines just to survive the factory warranty. Toyota built the 2JZ to survive the apocalypse. The crankshaft is forged steel. The connecting rods are thick like tree trunks. Piston oil squirters keep the internals freezing cold under extreme boost pressure. It is a violent mechanical symphony. And the crazy part? You could take this exact factory engine, rip off the twin turbos, slap a massive single turbocharger on it, and push it past 1,000 horsepower without opening the engine block. 1,000 horsepower from a factory bottom end? That is absolute insanity. No one else was doing this. Nobody. Not Ferrari, not Lamborghini, not Porsche. Toyota created a god of asphalt. Every gear shift, every exhaust note, every piece of metal was engineered to humiliate European royalty on the highway. To understand how it actually achieves this terrifying level of dominance, we must tear open the block. Now, let us dive deep into the exact mechanical witchcraft that makes that immortal inline-6 engine tick. Let us crack open the 2JZ GTE. The secret to its immortality is the block itself. While other sports car manufacturers were switching to lightweight aluminum, Toyota looked at the math and laughed. They chose cast iron. It is heavy. It is brutal. It is completely unbreakable. Inside those 6 cylinders, 3 liters of displacement are trapped within thick iron walls.
This closed deck design prevents the cylinders from shifting under extreme pressure. It locks everything down. When you add massive amounts of forced induction, an aluminum block will flex. It will warp. It will explode. But the iron 2JZ block just absorbs the abuse. It asks for more. But a bulletproof block needs air to make fire. Enter the twin turbochargers. These are not just normal twin turbos. They are sequential. Back in the early 90s, turbo lag was a massive, dangerous problem. You would hit the gas pedal, wait 3 agonizing seconds, and then suddenly crash into a wall when the boost finally arrived. Toyota fixed this with terrifying efficiency. The first small turbocharger spools up immediately. It gives you instant thrust right off the starting line. Then, at exactly 4,000 revolutions per minute, a complex network of vacuum lines and pressure valves slams open.
The second turbo wakes up. It forces a hurricane of compressed air into the engine. The transition is violent. It hits like a freight train. You get the low-end punch of a big V8 combined with the screaming top end of a pure race car. From the factory, this system produced 320 horsepower and 315 pound-feet of torque in the American market.
But those numbers were just a starting point. The fuel injectors, the oil pump, the cooling system, they were all drastically overbuilt. Toyota engineers basically built a race engine, detuned it for the street, and dared the world to unlock its true potential. Sending all this explosive energy to the rear wheels requires a legendary gearbox. Toyota partnered with a German company called Getrag. Together, they built the V160 transmission. It is a 6-speed manual masterpiece. The gears inside are massive.
The main shaft is thick enough to hold up a bridge. When you slam it into gear, it feels like rocking a shotgun. It clicks, it engages, it locks. This gearbox was so incredibly strong, drag racers were routinely sending over 1,000 horsepower through completely stock factory transmissions.
They never broke. They never slipped. The 1994 Supra was not just a sports car. It was a perfectly engineered vault of speed. To understand why the A80 Supra completely humiliated its rivals, you have to look at the competition back in 1994. The Japanese golden era was crowded with absolute titans. You had the high-tech Nissan Skyline GTR. You had the beautifully balanced twin-turbo Mazda RX-7. And you had the mid-engine exotic killer, the Honda NSX. But while those cars were brilliant, they all had a fatal flaw when compared to the Toyota monster.
The Mazda was fragile. The Nissan was overwhelmingly complex. The Honda was expensive and difficult to tune. The Supra, however, was the ultimate combination of heavy metal reliability and pure, unadulterated speed. The driving dynamics of the A70 are legendary. It was not a lightweight, nimble go-kart like the RX-7. It was a highway missile. When you push the car past 100 miles per hour, the aerodynamics and the heavy, rigid chassis worked together to pull the car directly into the asphalt. It felt planted. It felt safe. It gave the driver absolute confidence. And the brakes? Absolutely revolutionary. Toyota adopted an anti-lock braking system directly from Formula One racing technology. It allowed each wheel to brake independently based on the speed of the corner, stopping the car from 60 miles per hour faster than almost anything else on the planet. It was a complete revelation. The real, undeniable advantage of the Supra was the tuner ecosystem. Toyota built a platform that completely democratized hypercar performance. For a fraction of the price of a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, a regular enthusiast could buy a factory Supra, turn the boost up, and literally destroy those million-dollar exotic European machines on the highway. It became the ultimate street king. It earned an immortal reputation for being completely bulletproof, highly reliable, and infinitely moddable. But let us be completely real for a second. The Skyline had advanced all-wheel drive. The RX-7 had a perfect 50-50 weight distribution. So we have to ask you, the Torque Anatomy family, a serious question. Drop a comment right now. If you were standing in a dealership back in 1994 with a bag full of cash, would you actually take the heavy, rear-wheel drive Toyota Supra over the twin-turbo, all-wheel drive Nissan Skyline GTR? Tell us exactly why down below. No machine is truly perfect, and despite the absolute internet worship surrounding the A80, the Toyota Supra has some deeply frustrating flaws. First of all, let us talk about the brutal reality of its weight. That indestructible cast iron block and the heavy-duty transmission came at a massive physical cost. The car is incredibly heavy. It tips the scales at over 3,400 pounds. When you try to push it through a tight, twisting canyon road, you feel every single ounce of that mass pulling you toward the edge. It is not a precision scalpel. It is a blunt force sledgehammer. Under the hood, that legendary sequential turbo system is an absolute nightmare to maintain today. That violent, thruing transition between the first and second turbocharger relies on a terrifyingly complex maze of brittle vacuum lines, pressure tanks, and switching valves.
When one single 30-year-old rubber hose cracks, the entire sequence completely falls apart. You hit the gas pedal, nothing happens. You are left completely dead in the water. Plus, as the 2JZ ages, it develops a notorious appetite for valve stem seals. You start the engine in the morning, and a massive, embarrassing cloud of blue smoke violently shoots out of the exhaust pipe. Inside the cabin, the fighter jet wraparound dashboard looks incredible from a distance. But the materials? It is pure 1990s economy car plastic.
The panels creak constantly. The dashboard buttons fade and crack. The entire interior rattles like a cheap toy over bumpy roads. Furthermore, finding an unmodified factory example today is virtually impossible. Almost every single one was chopped up, heavily modified, or crashed into a wall. Finding a clean 6-speed manual turbo model is like hunting for a ghost. And when you need to buy replacement parts, the price tag is completely offensive. Enthusiasts call it the Supra tax. A single piece of factory interior trim can cost you hundreds of dollars. But honestly, nobody cares about a few cheap interior plastics. Which brings us back to the ultimate question we asked at the very beginning of this documentary. Why does a 30-year-old Toyota cost more than a brand new supercar today? The answer is simple. The A80 Supra was the final chapter of an era that can never, ever exist again. Modern performance cars are heavily restricted by strict emissions laws, sound regulations, and corporate accountants. The Supra was built during a brief, golden window of time when Japanese emissions and standards allowed engineers to have infinite budgets and absolute freedom. It is not just a car. It is a blank canvas. It is a mechanical time capsule from the absolute peak of the tuning revolution. When you buy one today, you are not buying a 30-year-old Toyota. You are buying immortality. Thank you for riding with us. If you felt the boost, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and keep the revs high. This is Torque Anatomy, signing off.